buying into the woke and going too hard on modernity is not just ruining box offices, it's actually destroying careers at this point. And I don't think there's a better example happening right before our very eyes than Rachel Zegler. She obviously got her first big break, I think, in West Side Story. Didn't exactly do well. Got a pretty big prominent role in Shazam. Fury of the Gods didn't do well there. Had a new movie came out this weekend. You probably never heard of it. That didn't do well. And obviously we've got the impending box office bomb that is Snow White happening before our very eyes. We got the new trailer came out. Everybody hates it once again. And I do feel bad for Rachel Zegler, Aaron, because she's a young woman. She was probably told this is what you need to do to be successful in Hollywood. You see the older people pivoting, realizing that there's been a sea change as far as culture, not only within entertainment, but just throughout the country. And it feels like she can't pivot.
Well, let me throw this out there. Who cares? I don't care if Rachel Zegler can pivot. I don't care about Rachel Zegler. I don't care about some dumb bint actress, running her mouth and then, suffering the consequences for it. You could have kept your mouth shut. You could have looked to people who, you could have hired decent PR people who kept you in line. You could have, hired people who told you that, hey, this isn't going to last forever. Maybe you should go out there with some humility. You could have hired better people. I don't have any pity for her. I look forward to the day when I go into the West Hollywood Trader Joe's and she's working a register. And I think that day is coming soon.
And oddly enough, we just had another recent example, not exactly entertainment, but certainly sports, where we had Caitlin Clark, the toast of the sports world, put the WNBA on the map, threw it on her back and started climbing up the mountainside with it. And then she comes out and starts kind of groveling at the feet and doing identity politics and all that stuff. After she was named like the Time Sports Person of the Year or whatever. It's like people don't want to hear this shit anymore.
Well, in her defense, she's probably tired of being beaten up on the court. So, she's a little tired of being bullied. So she's given into her bullies. She's given into the terrorism that she's having inflicted upon her on the court. But yeah, it was certainly disappointing. And I think that it will negatively impact her career. I think people are going to be a little less excited to go see her next year. Hey, it's you got to pick your battles, and sometimes you pick the wrong one.
Rachel Zegler, once heralded as one of Hollywood's brightest rising stars, is now experiencing an unexpected turn of events with their live action portrayal of Snow White on the horizon. Zegler finds herself at the center of a whirlwind of skepticism and criticism as early industry whispers suggest the film may struggle to reach its ambitious box office goals. Whereas it was fashionable at one point to take politically divisive positions on Middle East or claim male heroes in fairy tales were less than aspirational, Zegler now faces a completely different world landscape, and Disney is all too keen to make sure it's her, not them, that's against the majority. And while I do understand Disney kind of letting her hang out to dry and be like, hey, that's her, that's not us, they kind of hired her because that's what they wanted to be at that time. And I know you don't feel any kind of remorse or you don't feel any empathy. I feel tons of it because this is what she thought Hollywood was going to be, and it's definitely not that anymore.
Well, maybe you shouldn't sell yourself out for the current thing. That's my feeling on it. I got an idea for the name of Rachel Zegler's next project. Box Office Poison.
Oh, come on.
If I may,
Norm Macdonald.
If I may, Norm Macdonald the situation.
Is she the new Carrot Top?
That's what she's become at this point. I think she's less. I think people have a more favorable opinion of Carrot Top than they do Rachel Zegler. And Carrot Top is weird looking. He's made himself weird looking. So he's already kind of like off-putting. But no, I think he's in a much better position now to star in a movie than Rachel Zegler is.
And that's so sad because Carrot Top looks really weird with all the plastic surgery and his face doesn't look human anymore. And he still probably would do better portraying Snow White at the box office.
You know who we need to bring back? Yahoo Serious. Do you remember that guy? Young Eyes.
Yeah, I saw a movie where his goal was to put bubbles in beer or something.
Yeah, let's bring that guy back. No, the problem for Rachel Zegler is that everybody perceives her as exactly how she came out and portrayed herself, as a stupid, entitled brat. And she came out and she, ran her mouth. And it's bitter in the ass. And sometimes you gotta suck up the consequences of your actions. The problem is that I think that she's a true believer. I think that she's brainwashed and she believes all the things that she said. And that's why even her apology was manufactured. If you look, that was just a press release that somebody wrote for her. Her apology that she posted on Instagram, That was definitely a press release. That didn't come from the heart. That didn't even come from her. When she writes with no capital letters whatsoever. And then that thing came out, and it was just obviously professionally written by somebody.
And the weird thing is, I can forgive lots of people for lots of things. You know, I do have forgiveness in my heart. But one thing that I definitely always hold against people is when you start talking down to me. And I think that was probably her biggest mistake, was that she thought she was, you know, on her throne talking down to her subjects and not realizing, actually, those are the people that are going to dictate whether or not you're successful.
And, you know, this is the problem in the creative field, you know, from actors all the way into the comic book industry, is you think that because you have an interesting job that people know about, you know, and obviously in the comic industry, it's known about to a much lesser degree than, say, an actress. But, you know, you think that because you have a job that people know about, that somehow elevates you and you breathe some sort of rarefied air and you get to come down like Moses off the holy mountain and tell us plebs what's what. And that is the quickest way to get the audience to reject you. And it's taken a little time for normies to catch up to that. But we saw it in the complete repudiation of Kamala Harris's campaign with all of her celebrity endorsements. It did not move the needle for her at all. In fact, it probably turned people off to her. You know, it's just one of those things where it's like, we're tired of these people. We're tired of their lectures. We're tired of them thinking that they're better than us when we know what goes on in Hollywood. We know the sort of parties they go to. We know the sort of things that they get involved in. We know the, you know, the crimes that these people have committed that hopefully start to be exposed and that they start to go to jail for. You know, people don't really have a lot of sympathy for actors and actresses. They certainly don't have a lot of interest in what they have to say anymore. It's just, we've returned to, well, I think, you know, we say like nature is healing. We've returned to a very natural point of just throwing handfuls of change at these people and saying, dance for us, monkey. Your job is to entertain. Your job is not to lecture. Your job is not to moralize. Your job is not to pontificate. We don't care what you have to say. You live in a bubble. You're not very smart. You know, you have a very low level of education. You don't read. You know, it's clear that you just parrot what you've heard. And we're all tired of it. And rightfully so.
Recent reports suggest the film may need to gross over $1 billion to break even. A staggering benchmark in today's box office landscape, especially for a film that lacks that built-in fan base or franchises like Marvel or Star Wars. Some outlets are trying to downplay that number to be closer to 600 million, but even then, they're rather hopeless that it can accomplish that task. Zegler has faced backlash for her comments during promotional interviews, while her remarks, such as her modern take on Snow White's character arc and critiques of outdated fairy tale tropes, were intended to resonate with contemporary audiences. They've instead polarized fans.
God, this movie is just and I don't really care because, you know, it's a live action Disney princess movie. It's not made for me. Although, you know, I do like Disney films and I do like classic Disney animation and I do like the original Snow White. I respect its place in history as the movie that launched the Walt Disney Company, you know, and really like helped Walt come into prominence and build his empire. You know, it's the foundation upon which everything sits. And the fact that Bob Iger and the executives at Disney came out and let not only spit on that legacy themselves, but let this girl go out and probably threw her to the wolves, telling her, these are your talking points. Go out and talk about how she's not going to be saved by the prince. You know, we got to appeal to that modern audience that doesn't exist. You know, so I do understand what you're saying. Like, they did throw her to the wolves to an extent, but at some point you've got to take responsibility for yourself and you got to form your own opinions. And I know that actors aren't really good at that because they're used to just being given a script and running with it. And, you know, that's what we see all the time. But, you know, Disney deserves every single amount of money they're going to lose on this film.
Well, yeah, when you have the break-even mark at $1 billion, more than likely, and best case scenario, it's $600 million. Like, we're talking about like top of the line, like best performing movie of the year type of stuff. That a live action Snow White was probably never ever going to be able to be capable of doing, even if it had the perfect star that was going out there and resonating with people.
Should have made the movie for $100 million, you know, at best, maybe 150. It cast real actors as the dwarves and just told the straightforward Snow White story as it was in the, you know, animated version, which again, I would say, why do we need that? We already have the animated version, but Disney's going to Disney. You know, that's all they have left. They're creatively bankrupt. They can't create anything new. Under Bob Iger, all they've been able to do is acquire. And a couple of, you know, things that they've created that they've had some minor success with have more to do with the people at the studios than they do with the leadership. You know, every now and then you get a Frozen or you get an Inside Out that actually resonates with people and does well. But, you know, at the end of the day, this is a story about hubris.
Disney released a new Snow White trailer this week following the massive backlash to the first trailer released in August, which now has 1.4 million dislikes. The new Snow White trailer has already racked up more than 563,000 dislikes in just 2 days, compared to only 23,000 likes. While YouTube has disabled the display of dislike counts, various browser extensions restore the number. And I do think people are probably having a little bit too much fun disliking this movie, but it does feel like a cultural touchstone. If you want to show woke that you don't like it, if you don't like modernity in your movies, go say you dislike this thing and be part of like the cause, I guess.
It's one of those things. It's like we have so few shared communal experiences as a culture anymore that when we can come together on something like everybody hating the original Sonic design for the live action Sonic movie and roasting that to the point that they fixed it. And to a lesser extent, Disney's been scrambling to try to fix this debacle, but they shot themselves in the foot so thoroughly out of the gate, and they didn't rein in their lead actress. So she keeps going out there and shooting them in the foot over and over again, that it's just chalk it up to a loss at this point. It's not going to make its money back. It's going to lose a ton of money, most likely. I don't see any chance of success for this. And the fact that people want to go out and roast it, good. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself at Disney's expense. They earned this. As Rachel Zegler herself said, she doesn't need your business.
Well, it's also weird casting. Not that Rachel Zegler is not an attractive young woman. She certainly is.
And she can sing, so.
Well, absolutely. But the bad lady that's supposed to be jealous of her beauty ends up being Gal Gadot. You're like, oh shit, that don't make sense. You needed to get Glenn Close. That's what you needed.
Yeah, no, that would make sense. I don't think that the backlash to, obviously people were like, Rachel Zegler, like she's like of Colombian descent, Snow White's supposed to be literally skin as white as snow, but it's current day. They can't have that. And I think that if they had given her like a decent haircut instead of that, like that Lord Farquaad cut that she's got going on, like right now, this movie is Farquaad and the Seven Dinklages. That's exactly what this movie is. It's absolutely ridiculous. But you could have weathered that. People would have gotten over it. If you would have given her a good wig and she would have been in the dress, and she could have been enough like Snow White. She, like I said, she can certainly sing. I don't think she's the best actress in the world, but she's got pipes. So she could have filled the role, and they could have done a traditional version of Snow White, and it would have been fairly popular. And if you had a budget of 100 to 150 million, the thing probably would have made 4, 5, maybe even 600 million worldwide, and you would have turned a profit. But Disney can't seem to make a movie anymore without reshooting it 18 times and continually focus grouping it to death. So I don't know what's happened over there. But in the last, the only thing we can really point to is, when did this all start to happen? When we started all the DEI hiring. When we started hiring people based on checkboxes instead of on merit and instead of on talent. So I think what's happened is you've got a bunch of people in there who can't do the job, but we need to hit a certain quota, so they're in there, and they just keep producing bad work that has to keep being workshopped and redone and redone and redone, and it's costing Disney money. And good, I'm glad.
Y2K, the latest film from supposed rising star and future Snow White Rachel Zegler, bombed spectacularly at the weekend box office. In its opening weekend, the outspoken Snow White actress hasn't had much luck at the box office since puttering onto the scene with Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. West Side Story was a remarkable flop, followed soon by Shazam! Fury of the Gods, which did nothing to turn around DC's dismal box office streak. Even The Hunger Games, A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, became a major failure, drawing the lowest box office take of any Hunger Games movie. Y2K is a comedy horror film with a smaller budget of just $15 million. Zegler's star power has been the driving force behind all promotion. The film drew a measly $2.1 million in its opening weekend. She doesn't really have any star power because she's never actually starred in a successful movie, but certainly her as the driving force of promotion on something might end up being box office poison, kind of like a Carrot Top.
Yeah, kind of like a Carrot Top. Chairman of the board, Bored. You know what I'm saying? I think it's funny that they banked on Rachel Zegler's star power. She doesn't have any star power. She's never been in anything.
Headlines.
Yeah, she's got headlines. She's got controversy. That's the only reason anybody knows who she is. But she's never starred in anything where people were like wowed to the point, like where enough people were wowed that they're like, I'm going to go see that because she's in it. As a matter of fact, people don't go see it because she's in it. Now, I don't think Y2K had any chance of being a success no matter who was in the lead role. That movie looked awful. But, it was cheap enough. It was only a $15 million movie. Theoretically, if you had somebody in it that the entire world doesn't despise, then maybe you could have made 30 million over the course of it and at least broken even. But that's not going to be the way. Like she's turned off everybody. People know her as an insufferable little prat, and people don't want to go see her. At this point, if you're thinking of casting Rachel Zegler in your movie, you need to be committed. If you want to cast an attractive Latina in your movie, Isabel Merced is right there. And I don't think she's said anything particularly stupid. A little bit here and there, but nothing that's insurmountable. By the way, how relieved do you think Brie Larson is right now that Rachel Zegler stepped up? Brie Larson is just like,
her.
And Brie Larson, actually, you put the two of them side by side, Brie Larson actually starts to look really likable. You start to go, hey, I like this girl over here.
I think Brie Larson comes off as somewhat charming and funny sometimes.
I think she comes off as like awkward and charming. Like I actually really liked in the interview when they were like, you can do Captain Marvel 3. She's like, I don't know. Does anybody want me to? I thought that was like a really human moment. I found it endearing. I don't know.
But supposedly they're considering putting Rachel Zegler into a Marvel role. But I have great doubt that would ever actually happen.
No, and that comes from one of those sites that's like a Mike Zero type site where it's like you post something on Reddit yourself and then you report on it as if it's news. Anytime like a video comes up, in my autoplay that's like about pop culture and I realize it's a Mike Zero video, it's like, nope, immediately turn that off and dislike it because that guy is a clown. And so I think a lot of these sites are clowns. They're just, obviously that's something that's going to generate clicks. You're going to say the most hated actress in the world right now is going to be in a Marvel movie, and that's going to get people to click through and see, and it's going to get people to rage in the comments. It's just engagement bait, and I don't think it's true. I think that would, certainly Kevin Feige at this point seems stupid enough to do it, but I don't think it's going to happen.
We shall see. I do want to say thank you very much to Aaron for joining me today to talk about this and the unfortunate fall of Rachel Zegler. I feel bad for her. Aaron doesn't have an ounce of empathy for what's happened to Rachel. He thinks it's her fault. I think she got terrible advice. But either way, Bob Iger and Disney are letting her down. Do appreciate y'all stopping by, but this is just a portion of the Geek Fix, a weekly podcast exclusive to Thinking Critical Patreon. If you haven't checked that out, there's a link in the video description for some more geeky goodness between Aaron and myself.